Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, good. I was worried that my mic would not be working. I did not plan on coming on until tomorrow. I was still looking into some things regarding Chris Skinner. But, every time I feel like something needs to be corrected, I come on to make corrections. And that's because facts are important. Okay. So it's obvious that we all know by now, and if you haven't, the Chris Skinner death case has now reopened. It has been reopened by, as it seems, Horry County, parallel with the Myrtle Beach Police Department. And it seems that there's a possibility it's also a parallel investigation with the FBI. I would think that it would be. The reason for it being reopened is that there's new evidence. Now, I want to go over that real quick. One of the large YouTube channels here reported on a statement that was given by the Horry County Coroner's Office. And if I could just read some bullet points that are very important in that statement, is actually the reason why I'm here right now. For example, many inquiries have been made about this case. Of course they have. It's all related to Mica Miller. The Mica Miller case has not only gone national, it has gone global. Very high profile case. So anything that's part of it is going to be just as high profile, just as interesting to everybody that has been investigating it. Now, as I said, there's new evidence. So we're going to talk about that in a second, but let me go over, like I said, the bullet points. They're only going to release. Now, this is just a statement of fact. This has nothing to do with a conclusion of a case, okay? They said we will only release information that is regarding a homicide or accidental death unless it's regarding an overdose. Otherwise, you may not receive any information from our office. Okay. So basically what they're saying is, whatever the conclusion of this new investigation is, will have a lot to do with which office will be the one that takes over the investigation. So, for example, if they find that it's a possible homicide, it's most likely the FBI will take it over. And then they won't need Horry County and they will not need Myrtle Beach Police Department. Why? Because it's directly related to John Paul Miller, who is already under federal investigation. See, when you're going to report on something, report with logic. Know how to read documentation. It does not say just because they will not release information except if it's a homicide or accidental, that they're saying that's not what it is. They're just stating a fact of the protocol for their own office. Once again, they suggest new evidence. And so that new evidence has to be investigated. That stands to reason, right? So what could this new evidence be? Well, I did tell you that I had sent a lot of evidence over to the Federal Bureau of Investigators back in November, late November. And part of that was investigative, I don't even know how you want to put it. It was research that we did on a wheelchair, an electric wheelchair, all electric wheelchairs being very easily manipulated and remotely manipulated by a remote control. Okay. Now, it's also been suggested by people who are reporting on this very quickly without actually looking for facts, coming to speculation that Chris Skinner was so depressed because he found out that there was an affair going on between his wife and the pastor that he wanted to do this to himself. Unless you have a psychology background, unless you are an actual doctor, unless you've actually sat with him and counseled with him, and unless you've actually heard that from loved ones, it's speculative. Okay, that's not necessary to throw that out there unless you've got proof, okay? I don't see proof in that. That's my speculation. How's that? From the videos that I've seen, he was the kind of person who believed in Jesus Christ and had faith and also had a very supportive family. And so if in fact his wife, was the trash bag that she is, that she's been sleeping around with the pastor, I think that the man would have been able to make it through. Okay, yes, she took care of him, and that's true. As I said, he had a very loving family that I'm sure would have taken her place easily, probably happily. Okay, families usually know what's going on. Okay, especially with something like that. If everybody in the community knew that they were sleeping together, I'm sure the family had some kind of an idea of what kind of mother and wife she really is. Okay, so with all that being said, now we've corrected the one-sided reporting. Now, I'm not saying that this is absolute, that I'm absolutely correct and it must be my way, but taking into consideration the fact that I've told you I've driven these electronic chairs myself. Again, unless you've done this yourself, you really shouldn't report on it as if you know. I do know. And for it to lunge forward, you have to take your hand, right hand or left, however they had it set up for him, if he was right-handed or left-handed. And if the police had to blot out his face for the video, that means his face was visible. For his face to be visible, that means his hands were visible. And if his hands were visible, you would be able to see him push that lever forward with absolute vigor to throw that chair into that pool. Because this person had just reported he wasn't at the edge of the pool. He was about 6 feet away. The chair lunged forward. You would see his hand lunge, push that lever to make it go forward like that. Because that lever is very sensitive. Okay? So that you could go slow, you could go fast, you could go around things. You have to be able to manipulate it. And it's not something that you have to yank on to make it work. As I said, it's very sensitive. So Chris would have known by then that he would have had to have pushed his hand against that lever with force to get it to lunge forward and go into the water. Now, it's also been reported that he was trying to lift his head. I guess I would assume trying to get air. Well, if you're trying to off yourself, why would you do that? I could tell that some people either didn't take psychology in college or flunked it, when you haven't figured out that might also be a clue to the fact that this man did not want to take his own life. You're dealing with a man, John Paul Miller, who has admitted with his own mouth on the altar and otherwise that when anybody opposes him, he goes after them one way or another, the best way that he deems fit. For example, if you report on him and he don't like it, he'll file a civil suit against you. He's admitted one time on the altar, and I actually did a video on this, where he said that he was at a church. He had been sitting near the front row, and another man, who knows, maybe it was the same man, I can't imagine that it was, another man came up to him, tapped him on the shoulder, and said, "Stay away from my wife and kids." And he turned around and clocked this guy in the church. He admitted that. If you've been around long enough, you heard the story. You heard him say it. He's very proud of the fact that he will retaliate. It's in his nature. And so here's Chris Skinner telling him, "Stay away from my wife and kids." JP's been bonking her all this time, so of course he thinks, Susie's one of his harem. How dare you tell me not to touch my own harem, right? It's not outlandish. Forbes, a well-known publication, put out an article, which I shared with everybody in the video I put up earlier, because I did that on purpose. I knew that other people were going to roll in their own speculative stories. No, We got to take this into consideration. And when they're saying, and I'm doing air quotes because you can't see me, new evidence, that means that anything that's been mentioned or thought of before is not needed because they're looking at something new. Okay? What could possibly be new? The possibility that maybe this was remotely controlled. We're dealing with somebody who deals with AI. He has played other people's identities in text messages. He's played himself in social media. We know he makes multiple social media accounts. You're fooling yourself if you think John Paul Miller does not know how to manipulate social media and the internet, and that he's not tech savvy. He is absolutely tech savvy. And the way this article on Forbes, it described how to use a game console controller. So you realize there's many, many, many living rooms that have these Xboxes and whatnot in their living rooms. Very same system could be used to control any brand, any kind of electronic wheelchair. It was very easy. They referred to it as hacking. And we know John Paul is good at hacking. So am I saying this is the absolute? No. But just because the coroner's office is telling you we will not be able to give you anything unless it's homicide or accidental, other than overdose, doesn't mean that they're ruling that out. It just means they're stating a fact. And they said, our office will not be able to release anything to you. Why? Because it's going to change the status of the investigation. If, in fact, they do find that the chair was manipulated, if they do find this new evidence shows that his chair was manipulated and that he was killed. That's all. So let's be open-minded. Let's use logic. Let's use reasoning and critical thinking here, okay? I mean, there's bodies strewn all over the place around John Paul Miller. This is not a shock. So there you go. I wanted to explain that because a lot of this story is close to my heart. And when you work really hard, and work is the key word in that statement, hard at investigating and researching something, and then you report it, and somebody uses speculation and guesswork to kind of poo-poo it out, and here they are saying it's new evidence, it's a little annoying. Just a little. So I figured I'd share that with you. Now let's go on to Johnnie Jacobs. Let me take a little sip of my green tea. I'm trying to be patient here, guys. I am trying to be patient because I really do lose my patience with people who just throw in everything in the kitchen sink just to have something to say, just to be relevant. And all you're doing is making yourself look stupid when you do that. It's poor reporting. We can get that from CNN, MSNBC, sometimes even Fox. You know, if I want to be lied to, I could just turn on the television. But anyhow, okay, moving on to Johnnie Jacobs. So now I'm going to share a rumor, okay? And the only reason why I call it a rumor, and I'm not saying the people that are reporting on it are saying it's a rumor, I just have not been able to confirm it myself. That's the only reason why I'm saying this. It seems that Johnnie Jacobs was notorious. He was known for not wearing his seatbelt. And I have to give props to Millie. You know, I'm going to get to that, Connie. Thank you very much for bringing that up. I will go back to Chris Skinner just because you brought up the chess thing. Yes, thank you. So let's put all the facts together. Now, Millie on TikTok, God bless her. You know, I love critical thinkers, people who think outside of the box, and this was definitely thinking outside of the box. Somehow she got the information that Johnnie was notorious. He was known he didn't like a seatbelt. I know people like that too. It drives me nuts. They just don't like their seatbelt. And so he was known for this. On that very night of the 14th, it was clear. So visibility, it says it on the incident report. It was clear, weather was clear. There was no bushes or any kind of obstruction in front of the stop sign. The stop sign was erect. It was fine. It was perfect. It was visible. And so it didn't make sense why somebody, unless he was hauling, arse, or he was on something, which that has not been brought to anybody's attention. Why would he go through that stop sign? Could it be that he knew who from how would they know? Well, the people involved in this case are notorious for using trackers. So you can track people driving around. Here they come down that one street where everybody knows in town. That corner is known for major car accidents. Okay, we're putting it all together now. So here comes Johnnie barreling down in his white, Dodge Charger, which is powerful car. I'm sure he wasn't driving like Miss Daisy. And he's driving, hauling butt, And the person in the 2006 Mercedes-Benz, mind you, Mercedes-Benz, German engineering, it's like driving a tank. I don't know if you've ever been in a German car, but they make tanks, okay, for cars. And so it seems that according to the incident report, if I'm mistaken, please correct me and show me, but that it's this car went through the stop sign, Johnnie T-boned the Mercedes. Because he T-boned the Mercedes, I don't know what rate of speed, it doesn't say on the incident, but just from the result of Johnnie's car going into the ditch, going upside down, flipping over, and him being ejected, leads me to think that it was a pretty good speed, right? The other guy, he's life lifted, allegedly. We've yet to still be able to confirm that. And right now is only a misdemeanor violation. Now, that misdemeanor violation, if he is convicted of it, he sees 150 days at least in jail. Just so you know, this is not some small little slap on the wrist. There will be jail time. And there could be it could be increased, the charges. We just haven't seen it yet. And the court date's in July, so anything can happen. This is where I find very interesting, because we've been through this for the past, 11 months. Every police department that you deal with in regards to anything related to Mica gives you a hard time when it comes to FOIA. Every one of them, except Robeson. I have to say that they have been pretty decent with when you ask them for something, they give it to you. So I'll take them out of the equation. Everyone, okay? So it seems that the North Carolina Highway Patrol have taken over this investigation. And I naturally contacted them, and I really was more interested in the dash cam. I want to see the dash cam. I want to see what you drove up on. I want to see if it's real. I want to see what the condition the Mercedes-Benz was in, and I want to see the condition that the other car was in, right? I have been denied. I was actually told that I need to go to the Supreme Court of that county, or Superior Court of that county, and get an order for a Freedom of Information Act, which is it's federal, okay, right to information, especially when you're a journalist, you own a magazine, or you have a publication, okay? Well, I reminded this sergeant, he told me that, because they're a state agency, they don't have to answer to federal. I'm not really sure where he got that from, but state is under federal. Always has been, probably always will be. No big deal. I took it to the highest level. I actually reported it to FOIA.gov, to the DOJ, and then, of course, to the feds, which is also the same as the DOJ. But again, we're not supposed to believe they're hiding anything right now. If anything, as I've said before, and this was a conspiracy, this was speculation on my part. My hope for Johnnie is that he went under WITSEC, and so they formulated this make-believe accident so that, it looked like to the Millers that he was no longer a threat to save him for federal court. God bless him. I hope it happens. And I don't know if they'd be able to give me a sign and go, leave it alone where we've got it. But it might cause a problem if you can't release a dash cam. There might be an issue. As I'm stating right now here on a channel, it seems a little suspicious, right? Everything pertaining to this case is suspicious. And this is just added to the list. So, yeah, that's what I'm going through right now. I will keep fighting for it. If it was an actual accident, or let's just say, as some have speculated, that it was on purpose to take out maybe a threat to John Paul, I'd like to see that too. I think we'd all like to see it, right? So, and I would share it with you, by the way. I'm not going to be that person who says, I've got a video and, I've seen it and I'm just not going to share it with you. Or you got to be a member and you got to pay me. No, I wouldn't do that to you guys because we all deserve to know the truth, not just people who pay for it. Anyhow, let's go back to the chess thing. So that is an excellent thing to bring up. Somebody was supposed to come and play chess with Chris. Going back to Chris Skinner. Well, that person never showed up, was not on the incident report. So I find that very odd. Okay. Yes. There's also an hour of video footage missing. Don't you find it funny how everything pertaining to anyone that gets harmed around John Paul, there's always an issue with the footage? Either it's missing or you got to fight with somebody to get it. For me, I find that interesting. Yeah, he knew that area very well, Chris. He was there every morning. So he would have known better. I don't see a man, this is just like Mica. I'm going to go and play chess, dear. See you later. And I'm going to leave and go to the pool where I've gone every day. I'm going to go there and meet somebody. I'm under the impression I'm going to meet somebody to play a game so I could take my life. Does that make sense to you at all? Because it doesn't make sense to me. This is what I mean. It's like when you put all the pieces together, then something comes out of it. But when you put little bits and pieces and then you throw speculation in there, it just doesn't work. Now, if you want to say, in my opinion, that's okay. Because it's always good to see everybody's view on something. And sometimes you can find the truth doing that. But in this situation, the truth has actually, it's there. They're telling you new evidence. That means whatever has been discussed, whatever has been investigated before, it wasn't there. They didn't think about it. They didn't, perceive it. They didn't have it in their hands at the time, And listen, if this new evidence is something that needs to just be ruled out, so be it. It's better to investigate everything and rule out all of what didn't happen to come to the conclusion of what did. But when things are missing, and there are things missing, the person who was supposed to meet him, that's one. Let's also bring up, and we've all seen it, the footage of when Mike and JP show up. The ambulance is there, fire trucks are there, the police are there. And here comes Susie walking out. I can't get past this part. Here comes Susie walking out, and she hugs. I don't even remember who she hugs first. I don't remember if it was John Paul or if it was Mica. What I do recall is when she allowed Mica to hug her from the side, she looked appalled. She looked like, okay, yeah, whatever, just hug me and get it over with. This was not a woman who was grieving. She seemed like, okay, one down, one to go. That's my opinion, okay? So, I mean, let's face it. If I'm not mistaken, this woman was also with John Paul during his, relationship with Allison. That even Allison had to say something. And I think she had said something to Chris. Now, this might have been while John Paul was married to Mica. It's also been reported that John Paul has been paying for the private school of Susie's kids for a long time. So here's my question to you, John Paul. Why didn't you just leave Mica alone? If you wanted to be with Susie so bad, why didn't you just be with Susie? Why couldn't you leave Mica alone and let her live her life? She was married. She probably would have been happy. She probably would have had babies. If you didn't love her enough to be loyal to her, why couldn't you have let her be with a real man who would have been loyal to her? Why did you have to have her and Susie? Do you treat Susie the way you treat Mica? I'm just wondering. Probably not. Probably not. But then Susie doesn't seem very smart, because she's living with you and then she's got her kids living in another place. I feel so bad for those children. And the fact that she doesn't even allow those kids to see Chris's family, that's just so pathetic. That speaks volumes about her character. You don't care that this family lost Chris, and now on top of that, they have to lose the kids. That's such a cold, hard heart to have. And all for John Paul? I don't applaud you at all. I think you're a weak person. And I got to tell you, if you two are involved in the demise of these people, I pray in the name of Jesus Christ that you are caught soon and that you're taken off our streets and out of our society, because you don't deserve to be amongst us. You just don't. You deserve to be in federal prison until the day you take your last breath. That's what I think you deserve. I think a lot of us feel that's what you deserve. And that's in my opinion. So we're on 28 minutes, and I just want to thank you for allowing me. As I said, I was going to wait until I got, more information. I really was going to wait. I went to the doctor yesterday. It was just a really long day. And then, I was just like, okay, I'm going to take Friday. I'm going to relax. I had a feeling that today was going to be an explosive day. The day's not over. Anything can happen. And it could. So most likely I will be back. Who knows, for whatever reason, because there's just so much going on with the Trump administration and so much going on with Tesla. And I got to tell you, and I did put it up on TikTok, and I'm almost positive I put it up on YouTube. If I didn't put it up for you Rumble people, please forgive me, but I gave the handle to both accounts on X. And the reason why I did that was because the news is coming out so quickly, I can't keep up with it. So I figured, okay, if I can't get to reporting it, I'll just share it on both accounts, Ed Electasoonis Music or Creator to Class Magazine. And you guys can keep up. You guys can know what's going on. So if you can just, if you're interested, there is constant updates of news, all kinds of news going on our X account. We will be doing a show soon. I'm in the midst of looking at different documentaries for you as well. So with all of that, and then the Mica stuff going on, for example, Chris Skinner and Johnnie Jacobs, we'll also keep you updated with that as well. But until I see you again, and I again thank you for coming. I really do appreciate you being here. Stay safe, and God bless.